Okay, we finished making our hinge. Let's go, and we're going to need another part. So let's go make that. We'll make our door. And let's extrude from the front plane, and we're going to make a large rectangle. And then I'm going to, I don't want to make two rectangles, so let's just get rid of all those. Let's start over again. Let's try this again. So I'm going to make a large rectangle. And then I want to give it some dimensions because I want to lock the thing down. Remember, boys and girls, we need to click the dimension to say it's done. Smart dimension there, and we'll click that to say it's done. Now I want to get it grounded. There's a couple of different ways we can do it. You can do it however you want. I am liking the putting my lines from the midpoint, making a vertical, making a horizontal, and then making these construction. And this all comes back to because of all the optics work that I did. I'm just used to, I want my origin to be in the center, and that's just the way I like to do things. You don't have to do things that way. That is just for you. So we made that 16 inches, and actually I'm going to make that a square. So let's get rid of this dimension here. There's a better way. I mean, we can use an equation to do that, or we can quickly just use our coordinates. Oh, I tried to make it parallel. Notice it goes all red because you can't do that. It's overdefined. I actually want to make that equal. And so there we go. We got a 16-inch square, and let's exit the sketch. And we'll extrude that 2.5 inches. And so there I have my door. And then let's do the front. So we're going to boss it off here. And let's make another square. And so we're going to make this a 10-inch square. We'll do the same thing. We'll take these two edges and we'll just make them equal, not parallel. And then I will drop in there's my center point to the origin to the center point, horizontal construction, vertical construction, and then we'll extrude that. We'll make it an inch. Exit out of that. Make that 1 inch. And so there we go. Now we have our door. And so we'll save this up. And we'll call this one our hatch. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to make an assembly. Okay, so we're going to go up here, we're going to go to New, Assembly, and assembly is just a collection of parts. Now, once you make the assembly, there's a couple different things that you can do, and we already have things open, so it's going to sit there and go, hey, do you want me to make assembly with the parts that you've got open? And so we can do that. You can browse and click through, but I'm just going to say, select the hatch, I'm going to select the hinge, and I'm going to go, yeah, that's what I want. And I'm going to drop it right there. And then I'm going to hit OK. Actually, I just brought in the hatch. So, important thing, much like, and I'll show you how to add the other ones here in a second, much like that we have fully constrained wireframes, we can have a fully constrained assembly. Now, as I brought this in, you'll notice there is an F next to the hatch. That's telling me that that is fixed. You can either be one of two states. You can be floating or you can be fixed. This is fixed. Now, my recommendation is you never have more than one part fixed in any assembly. It's whatever the ground part that you're going to build everything around is going to be. That's what you want to be the fixed part. If you end up fixing more than one thing, you can have an issue and things will get screwed up. So we're going to insert a component, and I'm going to drop in that hinge, and then we'll just put it right there. Now it's got the little dash next to it, which means it's floating. It means it can go anywhere. We can spin it around. We can turn it. All sorts of fun stuff. Now, much in the same way that you can do constraints on your wireframes, we can do constraints in the assembly. Except in the assembly, we call those constraints our mates. So we can click on the little mate thing, and we can start looking at all of them. And just like everything else, if you start highlighting stuff, it will only show you what you can do. So that surface and that surface, if I go to click on a mate, it's going to tell me that all I can do is what's called coincident. So they're both together. Now, if I sit there and hit OK, so now I've put a mate there. What happens? Well, I can move that, I can spin that, but it's always going to be on that flat surface. There's nothing else that can be done. Those two surfaces are now always together. Okay, so what is the next thing that we want to do? Well, let's see. I want my hinge. Let me look at the picture of my completed assembly here. Which way do I want my hinge facing? Going the wrong way. I can't see. Can't remember if I want my, yeah, I want my hinges towards, I want those little round parts towards the front. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say that I want this plane and this plane here. I want them to be coincident, but I want it to be the other way. And actually, I don't even think I want them to be coincident. But first, let's flip them the other way. Oh, sorry, that's the undo. I want this and this face. Well, one, I don't want them to be coincident. I'm going to want them, mate alignment. So I'm going to hit this here. I'm going to flip it around. And I just want those to be parallel. And we'll flip it around again. So now that way it'll keep the thing from spinning around. And typically you can make things parallel at a distance. You can make them coincident. And I just want to see which we're trying to do. And actually, we are going to make that. I can put it here parallel at a distance and say, yeah, make it 1/4 of an inch from the edge. We can do that. But what I actually want to do is I am going to make it coincident. It keeps flipping it around. For some reason, it wants to be that way. I don't want it to be that way. I want it to be right there. And so now it's not grounded, but you notice I can't move it any other way. It has to be on that surface, and it has to be right there. And so the last thing that I'm going to have to do is I'm going to put it from the edge. So I'm going to do that parallel from the distance. And I'm going to say this edge, that face to that face. Makes it coincident. I can make them parallel. I'm going to say parallel at a distance, and I want that distance to be 1 inch. And so now, if I click that, and click it again and get out of mate, notice that there is no minus sign or anything in front of my hinge, because my hinge is in a fully constrained position. So it's fine. It's going to be all put together and set, so it can't move. Which is great. That's exactly what I want. Okay, but one hinge isn't going to do it for us. We need another hinge. So what I'm going to do is let's go to insert components. Let's bring in another hinge. Plop it down right there. And I want it to be kind of sort of the same thing, except I want it to be at a certain distance from there. So just quickly go through the same thing. Coincident to there, to there. Great. I want this surface here and that surface there to be coincident, but I want to flip them the other way. Great. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to take this surface, oops, screwed that up. There we go. Let's go back and redo that because I did not execute that mate. I want that surface and that surface to be the same. I want to flip it I want to hit enter, and then this surface, and then this surface here. I don't want to mate them, I want to put them at a distance, and I want that distance to be 4 inches. So, there we go. And we should go into the tree, and that one, hinge number 2, is also completely constrained. Nothing can happen. Okay, so now I've got my door with a couple of hinges on it. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to need to drill some screws. Now, we didn't put the screw holes in the part because sometimes when you assemble the stuff, then you really need to have parts made up. You won't make the feature in real life. You won't machine the feature in until you go to build the assembly. So you partially put the assembly together, and that's when you drill the holes. That's what we're going to do in the next one.